We hear a lot about carbon farming in this period. It's like a buzzword at the moment in Europe. But what is really carbon farming and what are its real practical, concrete applications? We came to Brewery in Belgium to show you what it really means and what are its concrete applications. So come with me.
I think it's important, first of all, to remind ourselves that farming and forestry are the two only sectors that have a natural ability to store carbon in their soils and in the biomass that they produce. Why? Because of photosynthesis, the act of actually taking carbon out of the atmosphere and not only building vegetation, but also building soil. And the difference between a dead soil that's usually more pale colored, that will resemble sand, and a living soil, which is more brown, is mostly the carbon. And when we look at climate change today and the urgency to tackle that topic, well, there's a great ability for farmers to actually confirm themselves as part of the solution rather than as part of the problem.
Hold on a second. Let me tell you a bit more about the guy on screen who's speaking so passionately about carbon farming. His name is Chuck de Leiderkirk. He's the co-founder and CEO of Soil Capital. His company acts as an intermediary between farmers and third-party companies eager to purchase carbon credits that they generate thanks to carbon farming activities. In the EU, most private carbon farming projects work more or less according to this model. But I'll let Chuck explain how it works concretely for him.
Our company helps farmers calculate their carbon emissions, certify any improvements, and get paid for those improvements in the form of carbon certificates. So let's look at the big picture first. When a farmer enters a program, he will get paid for 2 points. One is every ton of carbon stored, and the other point is every ton of greenhouse gas that is avoided. For every ton that is stored or avoided, we will generate carbon certificates for the farmer. And the carbon certificates will be purchased by organizations who wish to have a positive climate contribution in some form. Some of the carbon certificate buyers will be organizations that are regionally based and who want to contribute to the climate by paying people from their region rather than paying projects halfway across the world that store carbon. Another large part of our buyers are buyers from the food and ag value chain who feel compelled to bring carbon neutral or low carbon products to the market. What I often like to say is, let's imagine that a producer storing barley is storing so much barley that the rest of the value chain that is malting the barley and producing the beer is actually emitting less than what the farmer stored. You could actually imagine producing a carbon negative beer, which would give everyone a great excuse to drink more beer, because then every time you're drinking the beer, you're fixing the planet.
It's when I hear this kind of argument that I think that carbon farming could really quickly become popular in Belgium. However, to generate those credits, you need a farmer to work and implement carbon farming practices. So, how can a company like Soil Capital manage to convince a farmer to work with them?
So convincing farmers is tough. I think this is a new topic for everybody, and there's a lot of confusion in the market. I think on the one hand, we need to build trust with the farmers that they're not going to be damaging their productivity or their profitability. And there's a lot of perceived fear out there. And so we spend a lot of time trying to reassure farmers that what we're interested in first are healthy agronomy rather than just carbon for carbon's sake. And we always start when talking to farmers by saying, even without a carbon payment, carbon is good for your soils. Carbon is a good proxy for natural fertility, carbon is a good proxy for productivity, and carbon will allow you to decrease your input application. The first way we convince farmers is better agronomy. The second way we convince farmers is simply through ambassadors. What we've realized is the more profitable farmers actually store more carbon. That's really interesting, because now you can tell farmers you don't have to choose between sustainability and profitability. When it comes to photosynthesis, the two are aligned, and it's really rare in the world today. Farmers have that opportunity to align the two.
Okay, fair enough. At that stage, I really wanted to ask the agri-cooperative next door, also working with soil capital, how and why they decided to join this initiative.
One of the ways to move agriculture towards low-carbon agriculture is to work in partnership with processors and buyers. So here at Cultivae, we have set up a chain. We have recreated a long-term partnership between brewers, maltsters and farmers. So today there are 40 farmers who produce barley. There are 30 brewers who buy this barley locally, and in the middle there are maltsters, 2 maltsters who have decided to favour barley that is produced in low-carbon agriculture. So to be able to demonstrate that this barley is indeed produced in low-carbon agriculture, we use the soil capital tool, which calculates the carbon storage in the soil. And we also have a small not-for-profit agronomic consultancy that does networking, bringing farmers together and organising field tours to be able to emphasise specific techniques for moving towards this low-carbon agriculture. In fact, farmers are ready for this transition, so carbon farming or agriculture encompasses a few practices, such as covering the soil, using organic inputs or reducing tillage. Farmers can adapt. They are ready for change. They have always been open to adapt. In the past, they were asked to produce in terms of quantity, so they produced in terms of quantity. If today we ask them to do things differently, they will adapt and do things differently. I think that today it is the citizen, the politician, and the processors who must decide to invest in the farmer, because the farmer is key. They take care of the environment. They take care of our health, and therefore they take care of the planet. And so we have to put them back in their rightful place. If we put the farmer back at the centre, we will be able to change a lot of things because they are the basis of everything. But in order to put them back at the centre, we have to recognise their place, and we have to reward them properly for all the actions they have put in place. Because we don't see these actions. Most citizens nor politicians don't see this in their daily life. The farmer is all alone on the farm, and they are the one who is going to change everything. They alone are going to change their rotations. They alone are going to buy a new machine to be able to farm differently. They are alone on the farm, so in order to make these changes, farmers need to be supported.
After spending all this time talking about beer, I wanted to discuss with a brewery that is purchasing the carbon credits sold by Soil Capital to see what their motivations were and the benefits they foresee by being part of a carbon farming program.
Voilà, bonjour Andrea, moi c'est Antoine Limbourg.
Hi
et donc
Andrea,
je suis
I'm Antoine
l'associé de-
Limbourg and I'm the associate of Peter Gerard. So we decided to launch this little project in 2014, and actually we had the same philosophy, Peter and me, from the start, and that was producing is easy. But we are required in this world that we live in to produce well, in a sustainable manner. So we put a big emphasis on sustainability and short supply chain. Sustainability meaning everything related to saving energy, using solar, water reclamation, cleaning, and heat recovery. But what really interested us was this idea of short supply chain. So for us, it was essential to find local suppliers that could provide us with, at the very least, the raw materials. So you're asking me what kind of relationship we have with farmers and how we work in a short supply chain and in a circular economy. So starting from the design of our machines, we have made a fundamental adaptation, namely an automatic dedraffing. At the level of the filter bottom, so this is during the process of filtration of the beer, we remove the spent grain from the brewing process, so the draft, and this is sent directly outside via a nozzle, so the farmer, our neighbor who lives 50 meters from us as the crow flies, can come and pick up this spent grain or draft to feed his animals, or more precisely his cattle that will produce manure that is used to enrich the soil in the fields, and the fields which are in turn used to cultivate malt barley that will then come back to us. Now we are developing another project which is to make carbon neutral beer, or if we can, a beer that is carbon negative. Let me explain. So a beer, whether it be the beer itself or the bottle, has a carbon footprint. The idea, of course, is that we will have an impact on the cost of raw materials and the beer that we will be able to feed back. Now we are in the process of raising prices again. We have already integrated a part of this increase because we are expecting increases in the costs of all raw materials. We can already see it now. So that will happen somewhere as a part of this overall cost increase and will be accompanied by communication that will justify the payment of a higher price.
And now that I know that drinking beer can help the climate, I finally found a way, a tasty way, to save the planet.